Tua comes right at him. Another big bomb, and Ruiz is down. This could almost be over now.
Every time you watch a knockout, you're watching someone's brain being permanently damaged. Muhammad Ali couldn't tie his own shoes. His hands shook uncontrollably. His speech slurred into barely audible whispers. And for decades, the boxing world told us it was Parkinson's disease. They lied. What killed Muhammad Ali's mind wasn't Parkinson's disease. It was something far more sinister. Something the boxing industry has spent over 90 years covering up. Something that's destroying the brains of fighters across the world right now. By the end of this video, you'll uncover the shocking truth about what boxing really does to the human brain. A truth so devastating that powerful people have killed to keep it secret. But first, let me show you something that will fundamentally change how you watch boxing forever. Something so disturbing, so undeniable, that once you see it, you'll never be able to unsee it. This is a normal human brain, full, healthy, vibrant. And this is the brain of a professional boxer after just 5 years in the sport. Notice the dark spots, the missing tissue, the scars where memories used to live. This fighter was never knocked out, never even hurt badly. But boxing destroyed his mind anyway. What you're looking at is called chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE, and it's about to become the most important thing you've never heard of. Boxing generates over $2 billion annually worldwide. A single pay-per-view event can bring in $500 million in revenue. But here's what they don't want you to see behind those numbers. Promoters live in $50 million mansions. Sanctioning body officials drive Ferraris and vacation on private islands. And the fighters whose destroyed brains generate this obscene wealth often end up broke, brain damaged, and completely forgotten. Don King, the most famous boxing promoter in history, made over $400 million promoting fights. Multiple mansions, fleet of luxury cars, enough jewelry to stock a small store. Meanwhile, many of the fighters who made him rich ended up homeless and begging for medical help he refused to provide. But that's just the beginning of what these people are capable of.
You're not gonna mess up my life no more. Take my money, man.
Bob Arum, founder of Top Rank Boxing, has a net worth exceeding $300 million. When asked about fighter safety, he once said, "Yesterday I was lying. Today I'm telling the truth." Think about that for a second. He's literally admitting he lies about fighter safety, and he's laughing about it. Eddie Hearn, the face of modern boxing promotion, drives cars worth more than most people's houses. Yet when fighters develop brain damage symptoms, Hearn's response is always the same. That's not our responsibility. But wait until you see what they're actually responsible for, what they've been hiding from you. Here's the part that'll make your blood boil. The people in charge know exactly how to stop this. The technology exists. The data's crystal clear, and still, they actively choose not to use it. Why? You're about to find out, and it's worse than you think. Joe Frazier gave us some of the greatest fights in boxing history. His trilogy with Muhammad Ali defined an era. The Thrilla in Manila is considered the greatest fight ever fought. Frazier absorbed thousands of punches to give us that entertainment. And he died nearly broke, his family forced to crowdfund his funeral expenses. But Joe's story isn't unique. It's part of a pattern, a system. And what happened to the next fighter will show you just how deep this goes. Wilfred Benitez was a boxing prodigy, unlike anything the sport had ever seen. Youngest world champion in boxing history at just 17 years old. Skills that seemed almost supernatural. He fought and defeated legends: Roberto Duran, Sugar Ray Leonard, Carlos Palomino. Boxing experts called him one of the most naturally gifted fighters who ever lived. Remember that phrase, most naturally gifted. Because what happened to this genetic freak of boxing talent will prove that no one is safe. Today, he can barely walk. His hands shake uncontrollably. His memory is so damaged that he often doesn't recognize his own family members. The lightning-fast reflexes that made him a champion? Replaced by the slow, unsteady movements of a man whose brain has been systematically destroyed. He's only 65 years old, but his brain shows the damage of someone twice his age. And here's the terrifying part. He was known for his defense, his ability to avoid punishment. If this happened to him, Riddick Bowe was the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, earned over $100 million during his career. But something destroyed his ability to manage money, make decisions, or even recognize danger. He was found wandering the streets of Washington, D.C., confused and disoriented, asking strangers for directions to places that didn't exist. What could do that to a man's mind? What could turn a champion into this?
I feel good. I'm in great shape. I'm ready. And that's all I got to say. Everybody will see how my weight is.
James Toney was one of the most skilled boxers who ever lived. He could make elite fighters look like amateurs.
It's time for me to have show up or shut up. I can't. I'm gonna call.
Today, he slurs his words so badly that he's almost impossible to understand. But these aren't isolated cases. There's something connecting all of these stories, something the boxing world has been desperately trying to hide. Here's the cruel irony that defines modern boxing. The same industry that profits from brain damage provides almost no support for fighters suffering from it. Most professional boxers have no health insurance, no pension plan, no long-term care coverage. When their minds start to deteriorate, they're completely on their own. But that's not even the worst part. The worst part is what the industry does to make sure it stays that way.
Gregory. He right here.
Gregory.
Gerald McClellan was once one of the most feared middleweights in boxing history. His punching power was legendary, terrifying. After a brutal fight with Nigel Benn in 1995, something happened that left him blind, deaf, and requiring 24-hour care. His medical bills have bankrupted his family.
Listen.
What?
This man almost took my life.
No.
Listen.
Yeah.
Know something?
What?
Know something?
What?
Listen.
Gerald's sister Lisa has spent the last 28 years caring for her brain-damaged brother. She feeds him, bathes him, helps him with every basic function. She's given up her own life to care for a man who was destroyed for our entertainment. Where are those promoters who made millions from his fights? Where's Don King? Bob Arum? They're nowhere to be found. And there's a reason for that. 60% of professional boxers end up broke within 5 years of retirement. 90% have no health insurance. These aren't lazy or irresponsible people. These are athletes whose brains have been so damaged that they can no longer make rational financial decisions. But here's what's really sick about this. The promoters and sanctioning bodies don't just ignore the problem. They actively make it worse. Boxing commissions routinely clear fighters to compete despite showing obvious signs of brain damage, slurred speech, memory problems, personality changes. As long as they can still generate revenue, they're considered fit to fight. It's not medicine, it's murder for money. And what I'm about to show you proves they know exactly what they're doing. In 2019, a fighter was cleared to compete just 3 weeks after being hospitalized for a brain bleed. The commission doctor who cleared him later admitted he never actually examined the fighter. He just signed the paperwork. In 2020, a former champion with documented brain damage symptoms was licensed for a comeback fight at age 47. The commission knew he was brain damaged. They let him fight anyway. Why? Because the pay-per-view numbers look good. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Every time you cheer for a brutal beating, you're celebrating a system that turns human beings into brain-damaged vegetables for profit. And the boxing industry is counting on you to keep watching, keep paying, and keep ignoring what's really happening in that ring. But they're hiding something from you. Something that changes everything. Something that proves this isn't just negligence. It's intentional. What happens to these fighters' minds is just the beginning. What happens to their families? That's where this story gets truly dark. The cruelest aspect of brain damage isn't just that it steals your cognitive abilities. It steals something far worse, your entire personality, your soul. The gentle giant becomes something else. The loving father becomes a dangerous stranger. The quick-witted comedian becomes a confused, angry monster. Families watch helplessly as the person they love disappears, replaced by someone they don't recognize and often fear. The numbers are staggering. Boxers with brain damage are 300% more likely to commit violent crimes, 400% more likely to hurt their own families, 500% more likely to... Well, you'll see, but those are just statistics. Let me show you what this actually looks like.
He's like a little child, my little boy. I have to teach him like I teach our youngest daughter. He's very dependent on me.
This is what victory looks like in boxing. The boxing world calls this paying your dues. But what happened to the next fighter proves this isn't just about paying dues. This is about something much darker. The suicide rate among former professional boxers is 400% higher than the general population. 400%. The average life expectancy? 61 years, 15 years shorter than normal. For every fighter who dies young, dozens more live in a hell of progressive mental deterioration, watching helplessly as their minds crumble around them, knowing what's happening, unable to stop it. But here's what makes this tragedy even more infuriating than you can imagine. The boxing establishment knows exactly how to prevent this. They have the resources. They have the power to stop this suffering. So why would they allow this to continue? Why would they let fighters' minds be destroyed when they could prevent it? The reason will make you sick to your stomach. Because this isn't just negligence. This isn't just ignoring a problem. What you're about to discover is that this destruction is intentional, planned, profitable, and the people responsible have been covering it up for almost a century. The year was 1928. Warren G. Harding was president. The stock market was booming. And in a small laboratory in Newark, New Jersey, a pathologist named Harrison Stanford Martland was about to make a discovery that should have ended boxing forever. Dr. Martland had been studying the brains of dead fighters, trying to understand why so many boxers developed what people called punch-drunk syndrome. What he found under his microscope horrified him. The brain tissue was riddled with holes, scarred beyond recognition, destroyed in ways he'd never seen before. He documented everything: the microscopic tears, the protein buildups, the dead neural pathways. He published his findings, warning that boxing was causing irreversible brain damage in every fighter who participated. The boxing establishment's response was swift and brutal. They buried his research, discredited his findings, and made sure his work disappeared from public view. But the damage was already spreading through the sport like a virus. Fighter after fighter began showing the same terrifying symptoms. Memory loss so severe they couldn't remember their own names. Aggression so intense they became dangerous to their own families. And eventually, complete mental breakdown. Jerry Quarry was the great white hope of heavyweight boxing in the 1970s. He fought Muhammad Ali twice, went toe-to-toe with Joe Frazier, and was considered one of the toughest men alive. He had granite fists, an iron chin, and the heart of a lion. By age 50, he couldn't remember his own children's names. He would wander around his house, confused and lost, asking his wife who all these strangers were. He died at 53, his brain so damaged that doctors said it looked like he'd been in a car accident every day for 20 years.
You remember what they called you?
I don't remember that.
The Great White Hope.
Oh, I remember that, yeah.
Irish Jerry Quarry.
But here's what the boxing world doesn't want you to know, what they've spent billions of dollars trying to hide. Jerry Quarry was never knocked out cold, not once in his entire professional career. He was dropped a few times, sure, but He always got back up. He was never unconscious, never carried out on a stretcher. The damage that destroyed his brilliant mind came from something much more insidious, much more common, and much more terrifying. It's called subconcussive trauma. Hits that don't knock you out, hits that don't even hurt. But with every single impact, no matter how light, your brain slams against the inside of your skull like a pinball in a machine. And with every single impact, microscopic damage accumulates in your neural tissue, building layer upon layer, growing stronger and more destructive, until one day, without warning, your mind simply breaks. Today, we have technology that can show us exactly what happens inside a boxer's head during a fight. High-speed cameras capture the brain bouncing inside the skull. Computer models demonstrate how each punch creates shock waves that ripple through brain tissue like an earthquake. Dr. Ann McKee is the world's leading expert on CTE. She's examined over 1,500 brains of former athletes, and what she's found in boxers' brains is unlike anything else in medical science. The damage is so severe, so widespread, so devastating, that she describes it as among the worst cases of neurological destruction I've ever encountered in my 30-year career. Today, we have a name for what destroyed Jerry Quarry, Muhammad Ali, and thousands of other fighters whose stories we'll never hear. And the latest research reveals something that will fundamentally change how you think about boxing, about sports, and about the price we're willing to pay for entertainment. The boxing industry has spent millions trying to suppress this information. Medical journals have been pressured not to publish these findings. Researchers have been threatened, discredited, and blacklisted. But the science is undeniable, and the truth can no longer be hidden. Your brain weighs about 3 pounds and has the consistency of firm jello. It floats inside your skull in a bath of cerebrospinal fluid, held in place by delicate membranes and blood vessels. It's the most complex structure in the known universe, containing over 86 billion neurons connected by trillions of synapses, and it's completely defenseless against the forces generated by boxing. Here's exactly what happens when a boxer gets hit in the head. The punch transfers kinetic energy through the skull and into the brain tissue. Because the brain is less dense than the skull, it continues moving even after the head stops, slamming into the inside of the skull at speeds of up to 60 miles per hour. Imagine trying to stretch a spider web. The individual strands snap under the pressure. When those strands in your brain tear, they release toxic chemicals that poison surrounding brain tissue. The brain tries to repair this damage by producing a protein called tau, but in boxers, something goes terribly wrong. In a healthy brain, tau proteins help maintain the structure of brain cells. But repeated head trauma causes tau to become misfolded and toxic. These poisonous tau proteins spread through the brain like a cancer, killing healthy neurons and creating tangles of dead tissue. Once this process starts, it's game over. The tau continues spreading and killing brain cells for years, even decades, after a fighter's last fight. CTE progresses in 4 distinct stages, each more devastating than the last. Stage 1 begins in the frontal lobe, the part of your brain that controls personality, decision-making, and impulse control. This is why fighters become aggressive, impulsive, and violent. They literally lose the ability to control their behavior. Stage 2 spreads to the temporal lobe, affecting memory and emotional regulation. Fighters begin forgetting recent events, struggling with depression, and experiencing wild mood swings. They might remember their first fight perfectly, but can't recall what they had for breakfast. Stage 3 attacks the parietal lobe, disrupting spatial awareness and coordination. Fighters become clumsy, disoriented, and confused. They get lost in familiar places, struggle with simple tasks, and lose the ability to process complex information. Stage 4 is complete neurological collapse, the damage spreads throughout the entire brain, affecting every cognitive function. Speech becomes impossible. Movement becomes uncontrolled. Personality disappears entirely. The person you once knew is gone, replaced by a shell that looks familiar but contains nothing of who they used to be. A healthy brain is smooth, full, and vibrant. An end-stage CTE brain looks like a battlefield. Holes where tissue should be, scars where memories used to live, tangles of dead protein where thoughts once flowed. It's not just brain damage, it's brain destruction on a scale that defies comprehension. Recent studies have found CTE in 99% of professional boxers' brains examined after death. 99%. That's not a risk, that's a guarantee. If you box professionally, you will develop CTE. The only question is how severe it will be and how quickly it will kill you. But you don't need to be a professional to develop CTE. A groundbreaking study of amateur boxers found measurable brain damage after just one 3-round fight. One fight, 9 minutes of boxing. Permanent, irreversible brain damage. The researchers were so shocked by their findings that they recommended immediately banning amateur boxing for anyone under 25 when the brain is still developing. Now imagine what happens after 10 years of professional boxing, after 300 rounds of sparring, after 50 professional fights, after 10,000 punches to the head. The human brain simply wasn't designed to withstand that kind of systematic destruction, and the boxing industry knows it. In 2018, a whistleblower inside a major boxing promotion leaked thousands of internal documents to investigative journalists. What these documents revealed was a systematic, decades-long cover-up of CTE research that makes the tobacco industry's lies about cancer look like amateur hour. The boxing industry didn't just know about brain damage, they actively suppressed information about it, silenced researchers, and destroyed evidence. Dr. Margaret Goodman was a respected ringside physician who tried to implement better safety protocols in boxing. She pushed for mandatory brain scans, longer recovery periods after knockouts, and stricter medical supervision. The boxing establishment's response was swift and brutal. She was banned from working boxing events, blacklisted from medical conferences, and subjected to a vicious smear campaign designed to destroy her reputation. Dr. Flip Homansky published groundbreaking research on boxing brain injuries in the 1990s. After his research was published, his funding was mysteriously cut, his laboratory was shut down, and he was forced to leave academic medicine entirely. The NFL faced a similar crisis when CTE was discovered in football players. Internal documents showed they knew about brain damage and covered it up. They were forced to pay out over $1 billion in settlements to former players. They implemented new safety protocols, funded independent research, and acknowledged their responsibility. Boxing's response to the exact same evidence? Complete denial and continued cover-up. Perhaps most damning are internal documents showing boxing officials discussing acceptable levels of brain damage in fighters. They literally have charts and graphs showing how much cognitive impairment they're willing to tolerate before stopping a fighter's career. It's not medicine. It's a business calculation where human brains are treated as acceptable losses. The cover-up isn't just about hiding past damage. It's about ensuring future damage continues. The boxing industry is actively recruiting younger and younger fighters, knowing full well what will happen to their developing brains. At youth boxing tournaments across the country, children are being knocked unconscious for trophies and medals. Their parents cheer from the sidelines. Their coaches celebrate the violence. And their brains are being permanently damaged before they're old enough to understand what's happening to them. The boxing industry spends millions of dollars annually lobbying against safety regulations. They've successfully blocked legislation requiring brain scans for fighters. They've prevented the implementation of impact sensors in gloves. They've even fought against basic medical requirements like having neurologists at ringside. The boxing media is complicit in this cover-up. Commentators routinely dismiss CTE concerns as overblown or part of the sport. They celebrate violence, glorify brain damage, and attack anyone who questions boxing's safety. They're not journalists, they're marketing arms of the boxing industry. But the cover-up goes even deeper than suppressing research and silencing doctors. The boxing industry has systematically corrupted safety organizations, infiltrated medical institutions, and even influenced government agencies. What they've done to hide the truth about CTE isn't just unethical, it's criminal. And it's still happening today, right now, as current fighters' brains are being destroyed for profit. Right now, as you watch this video, some of boxing's biggest stars are showing early signs of CTE. Their speech is becoming slightly slurred. Their reflexes are getting slower. Their personalities are changing in subtle but noticeable ways. And the boxing world is pretending not to notice because these fighters are still generating massive profits. Watch this compilation of press conferences from the past 5 years. Notice how certain fighters' speech patterns have changed. Words that used to flow smoothly now come with hesitation. Thoughts that used to be sharp and quick now seem scattered and confused. These aren't normal signs of aging. These are early symptoms of CTE. Modern boxing is more dangerous than it's ever been in history. Fighters today are bigger, stronger, and hit harder than any previous generation. The knockout rate has increased by 40% over the past decade. Training methods have become more intense. Sparring sessions are longer and harder. But safety measures have actually decreased. Modern boxing gloves are designed to protect the hands, not the brain. They're harder and denser than gloves from previous eras, which means they transfer more force to the head upon impact. It's like being hit with a padded hammer instead of a pillow. The damage is more severe and more concentrated. The hospitalization rate for boxers has tripled in the past 5 years. Brain bleeds that used to be rare are now routine. Fighters are being put on life support after fights. Emergency brain surgeries are becoming commonplace. And the boxing media calls it exciting and action-packed. Social media has made the problem exponentially worse. Knockout highlights go viral instantly. Brutal beatings get millions of views and shares. The more damage a fighter takes, the more famous they become. Young fighters see the attention that comes from taking punishment and try to copy those styles. They think absorbing damage makes them tough, that getting hurt shows heart and determination. They don't realize they're volunteering for a lifetime of mental illness and early death. In boxing gyms around the world, fighters are still engaging in hard sparring sessions that are essentially unsanctioned fights. No medical supervision, no impact monitoring, no safety protocols. Just two people trying to hurt each other's brains for practice. It's insanity disguised as training. Here's the most shocking part of this entire crisis. The technology exists right now to make boxing dramatically safer. Brain monitoring devices can detect trauma in real time. Advanced protective equipment can reduce impact forces by 70%. New training methods can build boxing skills without causing brain damage. The boxing industry refuses to implement any of it. This device can detect brain trauma the instant it happens. It measures brain waves, blood flow, and cellular damage in real time. If a fighter's brain shows signs of injury, the session stops immediately. It could prevent 90% of serious brain injuries in boxing. New helmet designs can reduce brain impact by up to 80% while maintaining visibility and mobility. Smart mouthguards can detect concussions instantly and automatically stop fights. Glove modifications can maintain punching power while dramatically reducing brain trauma. All of this technology is available right now, today. The boxing industry refuses to allow any of it. Not because it doesn't work. It's been proven effective in multiple studies. Not because it's too expensive. The cost is negligible compared to boxing's profits. But because it would stop too many fights, reduce too much violence, and hurt their bottom line. Some forward-thinking gyms have eliminated head contact entirely from their training. They use virtual reality systems, reaction training, and technical drilling to build boxing skills without any brain trauma risk. Their fighters are just as skilled, just as successful, but with zero CTE risk. Brain scans of fighters trained with these safer methods show no signs of damage even after years of intensive training. Compare that to traditionally trained boxers who show measurable brain damage after just months of conventional sparring. The difference is stark and undeniable. But the boxing establishment calls these methods soft, unrealistic, and not real boxing. They insist that brain damage is just part of the sport, that you can't make an omelet without breaking eggs. They're lying, and they know they're lying. These safer methods work, they're proven, and they could save thousands of lives. The boxing industry just doesn't want to use them because safer boxing is less profitable than brain damage. The truth is simple and brutal. The boxing industry has built its entire business model on the systematic destruction of human brains. They profit from turning healthy young athletes into brain-damaged vegetables. And they're counting on us, the fans, to keep watching, keep paying, and keep ignoring the human cost of our entertainment. Despite overwhelming evidence that these methods work, the boxing establishment continues to resist any changes. They claim that safer boxing wouldn't be authentic or exciting. They argue that brain damage is just part of the sport's tradition. They're essentially arguing that human suffering is necessary for their entertainment product. There are people fighting for change. Doctors like Anne McKee and Christopher Nowinski who continue researching CTE despite industry pressure. Former fighters like Jerry Quarry's family who share their stories to warn others. Safety advocates who push for regulatory changes. Medical professionals who refuse to enable the destruction. But they're fighting against billions of dollars and decades of entrenched corruption. As fans, we have more power than we realize. Every ticket we buy, every pay-per-view we purchase, every social media post we share sends a message about what we're willing to accept. If we demand safer boxing, if we refuse to support promotions that ignore fighter safety, if we make brain protection a priority, the industry will be forced to change. Fan pressure has created change in other sports. Soccer fans demanded better safety after stadium disasters. Racing fans pushed for improved safety after driver deaths. Hockey fans supported rule changes to reduce head injuries. Boxing fans can do the same, but only if we choose to prioritize fighter welfare over violent entertainment. Muhammad Ali, Jerry Quarry, Gerald McClellan, Paul Williams, Joe Frazier, James Toney, Riddick Bowe. Thousands of fighters whose names we'll never know. Their brains were sacrificed for our entertainment. Their minds were destroyed for our excitement. Their lives were shortened for our pleasure. Their families were devastated for our amusement. But it's not too late for current fighters. The technology exists to protect them. The knowledge is available to save them. The methods are proven to work. The only question is whether we as a society have the moral courage to demand change. The silent epidemic of brain damage in boxing isn't silent anymore. You know the truth. You've seen the evidence. You understand the cost. You know what needs to be done. The question isn't whether boxing can be made safer. It's whether we care enough about human lives to demand that it be made safer. The choice falls to us. The choice falls to you. If this video changed how you see boxing, if it opened your eyes to what's really happening in that ring, then hit like and share it. Let others know what's being hidden from them, because every person who learns the truth is one step closer to saving the next fighter's mind. One step closer to ending this silent epidemic.